You're listening to Interactive Wrestling Radio, featuring the Interactive Interview, courtesy of WrestlingEpicenter.com. How you doing today, sir?
Good, bud. How are you?
It's good. I'm doing okay. Listen, I am happy to do this with you. I wanted to tell you before we got started, this is the first time we've done one of these together in 15 years. In fact, the last time I was going to do one with you, you missed the interview because your little boy put the phone in the toy chest and you couldn't find it. So there you go. Here we are.
Yeah, that
again.
little boy now is a 17-year-old junior in high school. So
yeah, time flies, doesn't it?
Yeah, man.
All right, you ready to get started?
Yeah, let's go.
All right, let's get started here in 5, 4, 3, 2. Welcome back to Interactive Wrestling Radio. Joining us on the Newsmaker line right now is a former 2-time NWA World Heavyweight Champion and a guy that last joined us about 15 years ago. He is Trevor Murdoch. Are you with me, sir?
I am here, man. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you back on after all of this time. And I got to tell you, one of the happiest moments of the early days of NWA Powerrr was when I saw you in the ring, because I was under the impression that you had retired, and I was happy to see you back in there. What brought you back to pro wrestling for NWA?
I felt like I was on the back end of my career. Harley was on the downward slope and eventually, passed away. And to me, it felt like all the stars were telling me, like, okay, this is full circle almost, maybe it's time to hang it up. And I've done really well for a fat guy from Missouri, you know what I mean? 3-time WWE World Tag Team Champion at the time. And I just felt like maybe it was time to hang it up. And at Harley's funeral, NWA had sent a couple representatives, NWA at the time, the NWA World Heavyweight Champion Nick Aldis, and Dave Lagana, the executive producer. They came to pay their respects at the funeral. And while we were there, I know both those guys, and we were chatting, and, they asked me what my plans were for the future, for wrestling on my end. And they had told me about this new show they were starting in Atlanta called Powerrr for NWA, and asked me to come down and be a part of it. And I initially refused because I felt like, it's time for me to step out of the limelight and let somebody else, go in there and do their work. But those guys, kept calling and I said, I finally agreed. And I came down, and again, it was for one show. It's funny, the way they got me down there was, they said, you don't even have to wrestle. You come down and agent some matches. You know what I mean? Be a producer. We want your experience down there. Bring your gear, just for some pictures and stuff, but just come down and be an agent. And I was like, okay, great. And I get to GPV Studios, and I walk in, and the first person I see is Dave Lagana. And, after our pleasantries, he's like, hey, do you have your gear? I go, yeah. He goes, all right, you got a match tonight with Ricky Starks.
Oh, boy.
And I was like, oh, all right. And I'll do one. And went out and wrestled Ricky and, had a great match with Ricky, and he beat me. And I walked to the back and ran into Billy and Dave. And they said, you got way more left in the tank than you give yourself credit. We've already got you booked tomorrow. And that, one show led into two led into see you next week or, next season to, all right, we're going to put you under a deal. So it's awesome. Just like that.
Awesome. Now, what was your take of the NWA's approach to wrestling? Because I know some of my fondest memories are being in front of that TV at 6:05 on a Saturday night watching NWA wrestling from various years, and it still does. It's evolved a little bit from when we first saw it, but it still does have a lot of that vibe, obviously, with the new school style of wrestling.
Right. That's what we're trying to integrate old and new. We're trying to give the fans something that's familiar, but also up to date. And I think NWA, does a really good job of mixing both of those, the old school and then the modern school of wrestling. we like it because a lot of us guys grew up on that. Oh, you know, for me, it was world class championship wrestling, and you know that kind of stuff. Georgia Championship Wrestling. I grew up on that stuff, watching it. So the sets and the style of the production is very familiar and comfortable. Not to mention, you know, me being a Harley Race guy, you know, I kind of like walking in his footprints. You know, I've been blessed, man, to be able to do some of the things that he's done, not as well as he did, but at the very least, I got to walk in the same footprints, you know. So it was exciting for me to be a part of that. It was exciting for me to try to help revive that, you know, that NWA style and bring it to a new modern era of wrestling fans.
Absolutely. You mentioned Harley Race, and I was blessed. I've been doing this a long time. This is my 21st year of doing wrestling interviews. And in my first year, I was so young and so lucky. I got to interview Harley Race in that first year. And man, I'm so honored that I was able to do that. What do you think it was about Harley that makes his legacy still hold up to where people that are, you know, let's be honest, they probably never saw him wrestle. Obviously not when you know, they're too young to have seen him wrestle, but still they revere him in the way that they revere him.
Well, Harley's probably one of the most believable pro wrestlers out there. You know, he was a part of a time where, and what I mean by that is like legit tough guy. Like there was, you know, other top guys, other tough guys in this business look at him and go, yeah, he's the man. He was legitimate. He was straightforward, no nonsense. When you watch Harley wrestle, you believe that he is kicking the shit out of somebody. And in the same sense, a credit to his talent, he was able to make other people look believable, like they were kicking his ass at the right time. That's the whole, in my opinion, that's the whole magic trick of our business, is to take something that people see in a certain way and change their opinions and their minds about it. You know, that's the magic trick of pro wrestling.
Absolutely. And yeah, you mentioned WLW very briefly, and I have a friend, and I talked to him just before we did this interview, and he said the coolest thing was he watched you on WLW, and then he saw you walk into the gym to see your son play his son in a basketball game. But WLW, he used to send me tapes of that stuff, and I used to get to see a few of your matches. Not everything was filmed, but what I saw of it was awesome. That stuff was so far ahead of its time. Matches like yourself and Butch Reed and One Man Gang, and a lot of legends as well as a lot of guys of your era. WLW, man, that stuff really stands the test of time.
Well, it was, you know, when I was a part of WLW's first shows. I was there. I was part of that company solid for 7 years. Its first 7 years. There was a standard that Harley expected us to hold, and that was to go out there and work your ass off and wrestle. We couldn't go out there and get on the mic. That was a no-no. No one touches the mic. There was no production. There was no glitz and glamour. So you had to go out there and work your ass off to get over. Because not to mention, did you want to have a great match and get a great response, you knew that you were coming back to that town, because that's how Harley worked. Our first year, we averaged 70 shows a year as an independent. Our first 5 years, we averaged 70 shows a year as an independent. And that's hard to do now, let alone back, you know, before ROH started. Mm-hmm.
That's absolutely.
And then the way that would come about was Harley had the wrestling school, and all those guys like me, Matt Murphy, Superstar Steve, Wade Chisholm, guys that go in there and spend 5 hours a day at the wrestling school. We'd all get off work and go home, eat some real quick, shower, and then we'd be at the school at 6 o'clock and be there till 10 o'clock at night. And we did that 5 nights a week, and then we would go on the road and wrestle shows for Harley, And then if Harley didn't have shows, which was good, Harley, you know, he would book far enough ahead that we were booking other independents
Awesome.
in between those dates. So as independent guys, we were averaging, even on the low end, some of our guys were averaging 90 to 100 shows a year.
That's
and
incredible.
if you don't get better in that amount of, like, you know, we had no choice but get better, you know, and not to mention all the promoters wanted to have Harley Race guys on their shows because they wanted to be able to say that, you know, basically put Harley's name on the poster. So they would book a couple Harley Race guys, and we would go on, and 90% of the time we were better than most of the talent on the card, not trying to toot my own horn, but toot.
There you go. And speaking of tooting your own horn, obviously maybe it's a little bittersweet now because you're not currently the title holder, but you said you enjoy the fact that you got to walk in his footsteps. And of course, one of those things you did was be the NWA champion by winning it in the Wrestling at the Chase venue, at the Chase, which is very cool as well. What was the experience like of winning that NWA World Heavyweight Championship?
Talk about a roller coaster of emotions, because you realize that Nick and I had put in 6 months, 7 months worth of work on TV, and it all comes to a head at the Chase. The same place that Sam Munchnick runs shows, and guys like Harley Race, Dusty Rhodes, Ric Flair, they literally were in that room, walked into the same hallways. You walk into the room, if you've never seen it, there's just these beautiful chandeliers all around, and it's a big, huge ballroom. You wouldn't think pro wrestling would be there, but it fits. It fits very, very nicely in there. And leading into that match with Nick, like, you question yourself whether or not, like, you can do this, you can pull this off. If you don't, what's going to happen if you don't? I'm in St. Louis, my hometown, in front of all my people, sold out, 900 people in the building. Not to mention everybody that was watching on the pay-per-views. But to walk down that aisle, to see my family on the other side of the rail, and my 17-year-old boy, we were talking about in the beginning, to stand in that ring and go to toe with a man that had been champion at the time, like 1,100 days. And then Nick's a great opponent. It was magical. It was, it's what every wrestler, I think, dreams of when it comes to what that perfect moment would be. And a lot of guys in this business don't get anywhere close to that. You know what I mean? They don't get that fulfillment, that moment. And there for a long time, I assumed mine had passed as well. But to step in there, win that world title, and realize that I represent all of NWA. I represent not only the future champions, but the past champions. I felt honored. I felt ready. You know what I mean? I felt like I deserved it and I could do it, and I did it.
All right. There's a funny line of Coco Beware, liken your burden. He's trying to say, lighten your burden. How much of a burden was there about being the NWA World Heavyweight Champion? How heavy did the 10 pounds of gold feel when you were representing the company as that prestigious champion?
Oh, it was huge. You know what I mean? Everybody compared me to the previous champion, which was Nick Aldis, and which is a tough order to compare yourself to. There's a lot of doubters on who they, felt like I shouldn't have been world champion. But I know that after I won that world title and the matches I had afterwards, I just, did like I did any other time. Obviously I'm not everybody's favorite. I'm not, and I'm not your average looking pro wrestler. There's no abs on me. I'm not jacked. I'm certainly not pretty. My type of wrestling isn't pretty. So yeah, I understand I'm not everybody's cup of tea, but to be honest with you, I could give a shit less what those people thought. it was the people that supported me and wanted me to be, those are the people I wanted to make proud. You know what I mean? And I did. I went out there and worked my ass off. I felt like I brought a different look to the NWA world title that it hadn't had in a long time. And that was, basically, I know it's this is nostalgic when I say this, but ruthless aggression. I go in there when I wrestle and I beat the shit out of people. That's when you're going to wrestle me, that's how I wrestle. You want to wrestle for the NWA, you're going to eventually come across me. And that's who I am. And that's what the NWA likes. That's why they continue to keep me on the payroll. So that's how I do my business.
Very cool. One of the interviews I did leading into, unfortunately, the time that you did lose the title was the gentleman who walked away with the title, and that is Tyrus. And yeah. I got to be honest, I love Tyrus. I watch him almost every night on Gutfeld. I just think he's a fantastic representative to the company. That's not to say anything negative about you, but I was really frustrated with the internet wrestling community when there was a kind of a negative reaction to the idea that he could be world champion. I know he's the guy who took the title from you, but what is your thoughts on Tyrus holding that world championship?
Here, first and foremost, let me say this. Like, am I happy that Tyrus is the world champion and I'm not? No, not at all. Do I respect Tyrus? Hell yeah, I do. He carries that world title with pride. He carries it with honor. And to be honest with you, all those people that were complaining, like, it's funny, they do it all from afar. You know what I mean? Like, they wouldn't legitimately talk this shit to this man face to face because they know what kind of monster that man is. And I say that respectfully and professionally. I've stood in the ring with him. I've got plenty of pictures going nose to nose with that big motherfucker. Pardon my language, but that's just what it is. He's a mountain of a man, and he's strong, and he's got a bad temper when he wants to, when he needs to use it. So it's, everybody wants to talk shit, and they're looking for a headline. I talked to a really good friend of mine, and we were actually discussing it, and it kind of made me, turn my stomach a little bit too. And the perspective it got put to me was, there may have been 1,000 people upset, complaining, running their mouths on the internet. 1,000 people compared to the 2.5 million people that he reaches on a nightly basis. Exactly. That love him, that follow him. Like, that percentage, if you look at it like that, those percentages ain't shit. Those people ain't nothing. You know what I mean? No offense, I'm not trying to say they're not nothing. But you know what I mean? Like, okay. I
agree.
And after a while, they all shut up because they know it's a pointless complaint. You know what I mean? Yeah, you'll always have your haters. But most of his hate is because he's successful. Have you not, like, people don't notice that. Like, the most, people that get the most hate are the most successful people.
Exactly.
Successful people don't hate on successful people. Unsuccessful people are usually the ones hating on successful people. And for that one moment in time, bro, he was better than me that night. And he beat me like a man, fair and square, didn't come up from behind me, always told me what he was going to do, head to head, face to face, and I respect that. And that's the type of guy, and I've said it in interviews before. If I'm going to get beat, that's the type of man that I want to beat me, because I know he's going to. Because that world title, the NWA world title, is bigger than me. It's bigger than Billy Corgan. It's bigger than you. It's bigger than everybody else. And to sit there and hate on the guy that was better than you for that, I don't know, just seems selfish. You know what I mean? It's all about who the best of the best is. And right now, Tyrus is the best of the best. And he is getting a whole lot of attention that he deserved and he earned. Absolutely. Now, outside of the ring, that's about as professional as I'll get with him. Inside the ring, it's all about business. I want that world title just as much as he does. And, that's good, healthy competition.
You'll be happy to know he was most complimentary to you as well, by the way. So that
good.
It's glad to hear there's a lot of respect there between the two. All right. So the NWA is doing something pretty cool coming up very, very soon. And of course, that's going live. You guys are going to go live with the first live NWA Powerrr episode. What's your thoughts heading into the thrill of live programming once again? I almost said TV, but it's not quite TV. Almost there.
Well, it is. It's live TV. I'm excited. I got 4 years of experience doing live TV, so that shit doesn't shake me up. I'm excited. It's it's when you're doing live TV, there is, everybody's like, there is no retakes, there is no do-overs, there isn't no retakes or do-overs when we do TV. It's all live. It happens right then and there. It's just you happen to see it maybe sometimes a week or two later. What'll be good for this is for the fans to see, number one, it's exciting to watch live TV. Anything can happen. Secondly, we're going to have a lot of young guys this is going to be their first live TV experience. And, they're going to have to step up. You know what I mean? They're going to have to go out there and show out. And you're going to see some guys that will step up and that will shine. We have a talented locker room when it comes to the NWA. And, sometimes we don't get the respect we earn, but we're okay with that because we're going to go out there each and every time, man, and kill it and just, show everybody why the NWA will be one of the top NWA or wrestling promotions in the country.
Absolutely. And you mentioned that it is TV. It's going to be on YouTube. Of course, you guys moved back to YouTube from Fight. What's your thoughts on the move back to YouTube and maybe getting some more eyeballs on the product?
100% support it. You know what I mean? Like I'm not in the office. I don't make those decisions, nor do I want to. But anytime you get more eyes on the product, the better. That's one of the things obviously I learned when I was with WWE is at times it's more important to get eyes on the product, and that's our biggest goal, right? The more people that can see us and that can watch us and to see what we're doing, the better. I'm excited about it. I think it's a great decision. I'm happy about it. You know what I mean? And it also gets us back to where we were at originally. You know what I mean? When it was, yes. We were an easily accessible product that was easily digestible to anyone. One of the things I enjoy about NWA is the fact that you can watch our program and watch the first one and get excited about it and know where we're at on everything. You know what I mean? It's an easily digestible program. Whereas a lot of other programs, they're moving so fast that you may watch 1 week and then have to miss a week. And by the time you get to that third week, you got completely different characters doing completely different things. And you're like, what the hell did I miss?
Exactly. There you go. Nuff Said is coming up. The sold out Nuff Said, by the way, pay-per-view. Yeah, it's been a little bit since we've, what is your plans heading into Nuff Said? Me personally, I feel like I need to at least remind the fans that I'm still a contender for the world title. I have asked for a match, a singles match. I'm not in a position to announce that, but okay. I have to. I think it's going to happen. But right now, I think Trevor Murdoch needs to remind everybody why he was the two-time NWA World Heavyweight Champion. Tyrus is always in my sights. But I also have something else in the back of my head that I want to get. I want to do, and again, I know I'm leaving things kind of open-ended, but I want to take 2023 and turn it to a different direction for me. So I've got some stuff in mind, but right now I need to remind everybody why I am the two-time NWA World Heavyweight Champion. All right. Do you have time for two more questions, and then we'll let you off the phone?
I got plenty of time.
All right. So, one question I wanted to ask you. This is from my friend who lives in a similar town to you, close to you, who you played with. He said to me in private, you might kayfabe me on this, but he said, ask about Bob Backlund showing up at wrestling practice, wrestling training. Is there any story there to that, or?
I've been kicked in the head quite a bit throughout the years. I don't quite remember what said person's talking about.
Okay.
I'm not kayfabing. I just
No.
legitimately, I might need, again, I've been wrestling for 22 years. I've been blessed to be with some amazing people. Maybe the story needs a little bit of gasoline to get the old brain started.
No
But I
problem.
don't recall.
All right.
Backlund.
The other part of the question was simply about where we're at with wrestling today. Not just the NWA, but the whole world of wrestling, with AEW kind of now settling, getting past that honeymoon period, and people starting to see, what they're all about. WWE's uncertainty with a potential sale in the forefront. What's your thoughts on where we are in pro wrestling right now? And are you even keeping an eye on what the other companies are doing?
I'm a pro wrestling fan. I may not watch I won't sit down and watch a whole Raw or sit down and watch a whole Impact. I'll watch certain matches. What I feel like personally, I feel like wrestling's at the best it's been in years. And the reason why I feel like that is because we're back to competition again. There was a time frame where it was just WWE. You know what I mean? Even like New Japan and Japan, they were chugging along, but they weren't doing well either. You know what I mean? They were all trying to find themselves. And it was literally the one person standing on top of the mountain was WWE. And it's great to be in that position. It's great to be king. But if you don't get challenged and test yourself and put yourself, quote unquote, I guess, in the fire a little bit, you lose a little something. You get stagnant. You know what I mean? And the pro wrestling business got stagnant. And when you do that, you start losing fans. That's where you get, like, when you're talking to somebody and they're like, yeah, I used to watch wrestling, but I stopped from 96 to 2007. And whatever, their time frame is, just because, it got stagnant, it got boring. You know what I mean? It wasn't wrestling used to be competitive, exciting. Whereas now, you have WWE's, obviously the regime change, and you have a different mind kind of steering the ship creatively right now, a wrestling mind that's willing to give the fans, some excitement and give the fans a little bit. But that's not just because they've got Triple H. It's also because you've got AEW that's out there, and they're trying to move the needle and to stand out themselves. You've got New Japan that stands out. Everybody's excited. They've created Wrestle Kingdom, right?
Yep.
And it's wrestling is so hot right now because it's so competitive, and we have other wrestlers have options and fans have options. And so I'm excited. I think wrestling's at the hottest it's been in years right now, and I love it.
I agree, and I'll tell you why I agree. I moved out to Arizona from New Jersey, so I left where wrestling is every weekend somewhere to where there's no wrestling. There's just no wrestling. There wasn't anything for years. And UWN, Dave Marquez, put on a event out here, the Red Carpet Rumble, literally 3 minutes from my front door. And there was well over 1,000 people at this event. They were turning people away at the door. And I thought, you know what? I don't think at any other time than now that the temperature would have been warm enough for wrestling in this community to sell out a show like that. So, yeah, I agree. I think it's definitely moving to where we could be heading another boom period. I'm not sure it's going to reach, what the Attitude Era or the Rock and Wrestling Era or whatever everybody's favorite era was. But we're definitely, we're not in the dark ages. That's the good news.
Yes.
All right. Well, before I let you go, can you mind if I ask one last favor from you? You probably already know what I'm going to ask.
Yeah, go ahead.
Do you mind if I ask for a station ID? Just saying this is Trevor Murdoch and you're listening to the Wrestling Epicenter?
Yeah.
Do you want me to do the countdown?
Yes, please.
All right, let's do it in 5, 4, 3.
This is Trevor Murdoch, two-time NWA former World Heavyweight Champion, and you're listening to the Wrestling Epicenter.
Beautiful, man. I thank you so much for your time. And I'll let you know when I get this up online. But that was great. I really appreciate you taking this much time with me.
I appreciate it, bud. Let me know, and I'll share the shit out of it.
All right. Talk to you soon. Thank you again.
You bet. Take care.
Bye-bye.
This is Interactive Wrestling Radio.
Interactive Wrestling Radio. Interactive Wrestling Radio. Interactive Wrestling Radio. Interactive Wrestling Radio. Interactive Wrestling Radio. Interactive Wrestling Radio. Oh, Rush.
Featuring the interactive interview.
Interactive interview. Interactive interview. Interactive interview. Interactive interview. Interactive interview. Interactive interview. Oh, yeah.
Formerly The Blaze.
The Blaze. The Blaze. The Blaze. The Blaze. The Blaze. The Blaze. The Blaze. The Blaze. The Blaze. The Blaze rock.
Yo, Maniacs, so what you gonna do when the Blaze of Maniacs runs wild on you?
On WrestlingEpicenter.com.
Wrestling Epicenter.
Wrestling
Epicenter. Wrestling
Epicenter.
Wrestling Epicenter.
Wrestling Epicenter. The Wrestling Epicenter. Don't get off.
And now we shamelessly name drop from our history.
The Wrestling Epicenter would like to apologize for the following.
All right, everybody. Viva la raza. Viva la raza.
Hey, y'all.
Hello, ladies.
Hey guys, we had a lovely conversation.
First lady.
Absolutely. Oh, look at me. He's so kooky.
Be there. Where else?
Interactive
Wrestling Radio.
Wrestling.
Epicenter.
Oh my God, you win! Love being interactive.
I was not shooting. Yeah, I almost missed my fan. Breaking neck. I got 2 words for you. I've heard a lot about you guys. Excuse my language. You're going to go to the shop. See him now. Into the many.
No nerves.
That was great. It's going to be cool. What it's all about. The purest point of view. The living legend. Champion. Arrogant.
You just make me
Instead of statement, I'm talking to you.
so lonely without you.
In the land of extreme.
Testify. Nevermore. Interactive interview. I'm not just the best. Interactive interview with a plastic
You
head.
earned the right.
Nobody. You better keep listening. Thank you very much. Controversy creates cash. Professional
Made
wrestling.
in the USA, baby.
Memphis wrestling. The guy on fire.
I'm not
Let me
mad.
talk to you, dummies.
We were sexy.
What a show.
One and only.
Interactive Wrestling Radio.
Wrestling Epicenter.
Interactive interview. We took care of the business. This isn't ballet. We are huge with this whole. You're where it's at. You gotta recognize who's the best. Make sure you tune in each and every week. I'll come out of your computer. Knock down your door and turn it on for you. Or else I'm gonna kick your stinking teeth in. And that's the bottom line. Have a nice day.
Don't forget to like and subscribe.